There's a time in everyone's life where we discover that we have a need to be seen, heard, known, loved, that we want to love as well. But sometimes we fall short and we focus on what we don't have. We don't have the love that we want. We don't have what we need. Love sounds simple, but there is a requirement for love. And there is a form of submission that we need to have. It's a submission of whatever happens, God will allow me to deal with whatever it is. And a lot of people fear that if they love someone or if they risk that vulnerable moment where you're just like, okay, I'll just risk and I will allow myself to love this person and be loved by this person, then it requires that throwing ourselves against the odds of what if I fail? But what if you don't? What if this is the perfect person for you? And well, okay, so I understand that if it's not the right person for you, then it's not meant to be. But what if that every person that you meet, you always start finding flaws, and that maybe this is not the right person for you, or maybe they have a child, or maybe, and I remember when I first met my husband, well, back then, was a total stranger, and I discovered that they had children. I remember thinking I would never marry somebody with children. But had I stuck with that, had I not been in the moment and realized that there's more to relationship than just one-on-one, maybe there's more, or maybe there's complications, maybe you've gone through a divorce, a separation, you have children. Keeping yourself from the emotion of love can carry some huge consequences later on in life. And I'm not saying throw caution to the wind and not see what is really in front of you. I'm saying that you look at it all, and through prayer, you discover what it is that God wants for you. So today we're going to explore what it really looks like and what it really means to answer the call to love and be loved. So get your paper, get your pencils, get your notes, whatever it is, your little special notebook for the classroom, because we're going to learn and grow together. As I always used to say, it's time to dance. Here we go. I'm bringing it back, bringing it back. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you. Hello, my name is Lillian McDermott, and I am a certified life coach, a certified holistic cancer coach, and the host of the Lillian McDermott radio show, Classroom. If this is the first time in the classroom, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make responsibility, awareness, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening as well as viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Well, as a coach, and especially at the beginning when I first started as a coach, there were a lot of women and some men that would come into, pay to have some coaching, and their goal was to have me help them find a mate. But I told them and I encouraged them that before they find a mate, let's figure out what it is that you really truly want. What do you want? Let's figure out what that person looks like. Let's figure out why. And then let's work on ourselves to become those things you want to see in your mate. Become what you want to see in your mate? That is so important. It is important for us to see that we're bringing ourselves into a relationship, not just someone bringing them into our life. We're coming together and decided, what is this going to look like? What is this love going to look like? There are times where, like the first time I was married, I remember I just didn't know I could break up with somebody. I just thought that was the next thing. You get along, and the next thing is they ask you to marry you, and then you marry them. I didn't realize there was more to that. But marriage is one thing. When you date somebody, you want to get to know that person. You want to like them as well as love them. Because you might love them, but after a while, if they're not equally matched, equally yoked from you, that love can become very difficult. So you must really like the person that you want to give yourself to. And at the beginning, when I first started the class, I said, this is all about submission, about being vulnerable. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not willing to be in a relationship. But a relationship doesn't have to be an intimate relationship between a man and a woman. What I mean by that is it could be your friend, it could be your children, it could be an uncle, an aunt, a parent. The love that I'm talking about right now is having a loving relationship with. So if you have a loving, kind of like a brotherly, sisterly friendship, where you get together and you have fun, that kind of love is a lot easier for us because they're a friend. They're not someone that we're going to be spending the rest of our life with. But I did not realize the first time I made that choice to spend the rest of my life with somebody that I would have children with and have a life with. I didn't realize that there was more to it, like to like the person. I loved them, but love becomes harder the more intimate you are with a person, and I'm talking about the kind of love that you would have for your soulmate, okay? But the ones that it's like your family and friends, those sometimes can be difficult too. And the reason why is because there's baggage, there's expectations that they may have not met. There's, afraid of being vulnerable because you don't want to be rejected. So there's a lot of different kinds of rejections or that we could experience, whether they're real or perceived. Like maybe there's a fear within me that I am not a lovable person. And I will tell you where that fear came from for me. When I was a young girl, probably 8 or 9, well, you know already about the teacher that told me I would never amount to much when I was 7 years old. Then moving forward, my paternal grandmother told me that if I stopped learning how to play the piano, then she would stop loving me. And I'm just giving you the brief of this. And because I stopped learning how to play the piano, I made up about myself that I was unlovable. Because if your grandmother can't love you, who will? So I believe why I chose the first person that I married was because maybe I just didn't quite feel the love that I needed to feel. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's amazing how we do things to honor contracts when we're children. Somebody said something to you that you were ugly or not, you know, that you weren't talented or that you would never amount to much or that you were, that they wouldn't love you if you didn't do what they did. That I know that my paternal grandmother meant to motivate me, but you do not motivate someone by withholding love from them. Never, ever, ever. And if you're even playing with a child and you say, I won't love you, or if you don't give me that, or whatever, sometimes we say these darn things and they really can affect the other person. No, I will always love my children. I will always love. I will always choose love. I may not like what you've done, and depending on what kind of relationship we have, we will work together at establishing a better relationship. Not everybody wants to do that, so it doesn't work all the time, but at least through me, I can only control how I feel and what I do. So, with that in mind, when I chose the second time around, I was in my 30s. I was 30 when I met Robert, 31 when I married him. And I did not know what I didn't know when I chose to marry somebody who had children, and he chose to marry me with children. The whole part of that happened was truly divine intervention. Because had I known how difficult it was to blend a family together, and those of you who have blended families, you know what I'm talking about. If you've never blended a family and you're still in an intact home, congratulations, that's wonderful. But if you've tried to blend a family in the past, you know how difficult that could be. There's a lot of death to self, that has to happen. And I'm talking about death to the ego, death to self, that must happen so that you will choose love above the fear, or choose love above the rejection, choose love of, over how difficult it might be to be in relationship with that person. But that was a choice I made. You may not make that choice. You might choose to say, deal breaker, not going to date anybody, and you will never experience what I've experienced in blending a family. Now, it's been very rewarding. So, had I known what I knew then, if I knew then what I know now with the end outcome, 100%. But if I knew then how difficult it would be, I would say, no, not ready for that. But I'm glad I didn't know what I didn't know. So sometimes those things happen to us so that we can step further into wherever we're being called. And so this was a lot of lessons for me, and I'm sure for Robert, because we probably both came into the relationship with, what if it fails? Deep, deep, deep down inside. Not like, when we went to our first class of blending a family together, they said that 75% of second marriages fail. And both Robert and I, madly in love with one another, said, that means 25% chance of success. That's great. That's a great thing. And we were going to beat the odds. And 32 years later, here we are. But that was a lot of sacrifice that needed to go in there, a lot of working together. But some people just aren't ready for that. Some people are not wanting to do that. And that's good too. So love is a calling, not a transaction. Sometimes you really don't understand what you are giving up when you choose to love or choose not to love. In both situations, you could potentially be giving something up. But here's the thing. You will know when it's the right person. You will know when you're being called to love this person. And I'm saying beyond a friendship. This is a marriage or a committed relationship. When you're in that committed relationship, you need to understand that this is not a transaction. This is a calling. And when you have a calling, you roll up your sleeves and you do whatever it takes to achieve what you want. And our expectation was to overcome and be part of the success story of that 25%. Now, will it work out? We'll see. Just joking. Okay, so when we're looking at the exterior of a person, and because of that exterior of that person, you say, no, not gonna go deeper. And by the way, this was a topic that was requested for a listener, and so that's why I'm choosing this. They're not a viewer, they're a listener, so they listen on podcasts, and I'm sure that that there are other people that are wanting to know, how do I break the cycle? Now, if I keep going back and forth, if you are talking about a friendship and you just moved to a place and now you're in your 50s and you say it's so hard to make friends, what are you willing to do to meet people? What are you willing to do? Sometimes it doesn't happen automatically, especially if you work online. If you work in a place where there's not a lot of engagement or interaction. And the whole thing is that you need to put yourself out there. So whether it's a friendship, a family member that maybe Someone said something to you, and instead of saying, I will never speak to them again, you stop and say, by me having that emotion, by me feeling this way, I will eventually hurt myself because I'll be holding a grudge. I will be excluding somebody. So if that is something that you've considered, if there's somebody in your life that you refuse to speak to because of a difference of opinion, whether it's political, social, economic, whether it's they're doing something that you don't like, you you can choose to still love that person. You can still choose to have somewhat of a relationship. And if they're willing to talk it out with you, amazing. That's great. But if they're not willing to talk it out with you, then you've got to do the work on your own. You've got to wish them love, peace, joy, unexpected abundance, and send them, do the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. That's the story in your head, the tenderizer in your heart. Whatever you need to do to create connection instead of conflict, that's what I'm talking about. But when you are unwilling, and this is what today's class is about, when you are unwilling to risk, you're unwilling to love, you're unwilling to get uncomfortable, then you might miss out. Maybe this is your window of opportunity. Maybe by, if you look back and say, I dated a lot of people, but none of them ever amounted to what I wanted in a person. Well, what is it that you want? So I want to encourage you all to write down the person of my dreams and write down these are the things that I want from the person of my dreams, and then write all the different attributes that you would like from the person of your dreams, and the person that you want to call your soulmate. And then the question is, what am I willing to do to meet this person? And again, as I said, you must become what you want to attract. So if you want someone who's fit and you don't know how to make it to the gym, other than to drive by it to go to the Dairy Queen or to the Dunkin' Donuts, then why would you want to attract someone like that? Because you're not going to have that in common. So think about the things that you want to have in common. And then out of those 25 things, circle five, at least five, that are deal breakers. Like for me, I thought that I would never date anybody that had children. But here's what happened. I started dating a guy that had a child, but that child lived from out of state. And when I met that child eventually, I saw how much love I have in my heart, that I could really love another person's child. And that's what opened the door for Robert when I finally met Robert, that when he, presented himself in my life with three kids, I didn't run away. I didn't care. I was just so madly in love that I knew this was the person for me. Again, as I mentioned before, had I known everything that was going to happen, then that how difficult it would be, I probably would have said, "No, we're so much in love. Everything's going to work out fine." And it has. But it took a lot of grace, a lot of prayer, a lot of discussions, uh, uh, a lot of, meeting each other halfway, uh, workshops. And this is after we got married. Before we thought, yeah, we're invincible. We're going to be able to do this. And a lot of people do. So what we've done is no big deal in people's eyes. But when you go through it, you realize, you know what? Looking back, look how beautiful what we did, what we created. Not perfect, but it's perfect for us. It still can work. We can still have some improvements in all the people that surround us in our life. And so, but it started with a decision to risk. When I heard that 75% of second marriages fail, what we chose to focus on was the 25%. And so that mindset is crucial in order to achieve the love that we want, the call to love and be loved, there had to be huge willingness to risk. Are you willing to risk? So if you are looking for that soulmate, which is where I want to start now, and if you want to um, look at how can I have a better relationship with my parents and all that. I've done classes on that, relationships with people, the ego versus the essence and all of those things that you can just sit, or you can reach out to me at 407-373-5959. Yeah, 407-373-5959. And maybe schedule or go to Lily at whenyouneedafriend.com and schedule your coaching session. But when you decide that I am willing to do whatever it takes, I really want to find my soulmate. Sometimes you don't have to look very far. Sometimes it's just a matter of volunteering. It's a matter of saying yes to an invitation to go to a party, to maybe take a course or in college, like a adult school. And so it's just a matter of getting a little uncomfortable, knowing that maybe you are tired at the end of the day, but you still do it anyway. You still meet your friends, whether it's for a cup of tea or a glass of wine, whatever it is that you and your friends do, then you do it, regardless of how tired you are or how, like you don't think you're going to meet anybody or you don't have anything in common. Now, some people um, withhold themselves from loving because it's much easier to love somebody than to have that expectation that you too will be loved. And sometimes it's protections from our childhood. It's protection from our childhood, like for me, when my paternal grandmother said she wouldn't love me if I stopped learning how to play the piano. It wasn't, again, that she was trying to hurt me, although inadvertently she did. But I also was a participant there that made up that I was unlovable. And I honored that contract the first time. The second time, when I married Robert, I didn't want to honor that contract anymore. I wanted to be loved like I deserved to be loved. But again, huge risk and the willingness to work together. So make sure that when you're doing this, that the person that you're with, that you have these discussions ahead of time, that you say, okay, if this happens, how would you handle it? If this happens, because when you marry or when you have a committed relationship with somebody, it's really easy at the beginning. But as money issues, the economy, you lose your job, your child doesn't behave kindly towards the other person, how are you going to deal with something like that? So sometimes these honest conversations about how would you deal with this if you were out in a business trip and you are my soulmate and a woman comes on to you, what would you do? Well, I gave Robert permission to give me a call and tell me what was happening. I wanted him to tell me at any time. And I remember when I used to work with doctors and lawyers and used to go to all these parties, I remember coming home and saying to my husband, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm coming home to you." I mean, who asks a married woman if you are married? Yes, but are you happily married? Does that make a difference? Does that make a difference if I'm happily married or not? However, I am happily married. And so, what next? What comes after that question? So, you, my dear friend, must have parameters of what you accept and what you don't accept. Because evil and temptation doesn't show up with a pitchfork and little horns. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's very seductive. So you need to find someone that is willing to be honest with you, with their emotions. And so, how do you find somebody like that? Without rejecting them because you're afraid they're going to hurt you with all these different scenarios in your head that have never happened. So, how do you do that? Well, you do it by figuring out, where is this fear coming from? Where's the fear coming from? Where is the the example of that the person that you're going to be with is going to cheat on you? So before that even happens, you control the failure. You control the no pain, no pain. But it is no pain, no gain. And I'm not saying to be irresponsible with the person that you're hooking up with. Don't be irresponsible. Be responsible. Know who you're with. And be willing to be silly and be willing to be vulnerable, be willing to do all these things. Because ultimately, who wants to die alone? Who wants to be without a partner? And if it's not a soulmate, it's a good friend. Or if it's not a good friend, it might be a sibling. Or if it's not a sibling, maybe it's a grandchild. Whatever the case might be vulnerable with a person that will love you as you are, how you are, not the people pleaser that says, yes, yes, I love that. Yes, I love that. Yes, yes, I love that too. Yes, I love that. And then once you're together, you go, oh my gosh, I've got to keep this up. I'm going to keep this up. So you got to be honest. So find things that you like to do. Find things that you would want to share with your soulmate, whether you like the outdoors or join a travel group if you can. And it doesn't have to be travel to Europe or travel to an expensive, exotic place. It could be travel to a city in your town, a city in your state that you can all meet there and do something that you really truly enjoy. So figure out, what are those things that you love, and figure out how you can do this just for yourself, not to meet anybody else, but do it for you. Do it for you. Figure out what you love to do it for you. And then if you meet somebody in that opportunity, in that venture or that outing, then you start exploring those relationships. You start exploring, because once you feel whole, and this is something that I realized the first time, I was not a whole person. I was looking for my other half. Isn't that just so cliche? He completes me. She completes me. No, that doesn't work, because this is the image I have. This is what I learned from the first time versus the last time I got married. So there's only been two. So it's the first time and then Robert. And that was 32 years ago. So I remember thinking, as adult Lily versus younger Lily, that when I got married the first time, I was looking for my other half, someone who was different than me, someone that kind of completed the who I was not. And I remember thinking that you take a half and you take another half, and all of a sudden you are trying to focus on that half and you neglect who you are. You're not a whole person. So make sure that before you welcome that soulmate, that you've done the work for yourself. Figure out what your fears are. Figure out what you're willing to do, how you're willing to risk, what you love, what you're looking for, so that once you are in that place of wholeness, where you feel comfortable with being single, you feel comfortable with being not alone, but not lonely. Like, even people can feel lonely in a group of people. I don't know if that sounds like you, or if you can resonate, or if that makes sense. But sometimes we can be in a room full of people and still feel lonely. Why? Because we are not whole. We're not whole. We're not okay with who we are. And if we're not okay with who we are, we have to be what everybody else is, and we're pretending to be someone we're not, then you're not comfortable with who you are. And there's not that wholeness. In order for you to attract a whole person, because this is what I learned, two halves do not make a whole, it just makes a quarter. And so when I met Robert, I had been working on myself, not to the point where afterwards, because I needed more help after we came together and blended our family and did all that. So I started working on myself. I went through something called New Beginnings. The Catholic Church does a lot of wonderful things to enhance marriages, to help with communication, to also, before you marry, are you equally yoked? There are courses and families. Before we got married, Robert and I, we went to a blended family workshop, which I love the fact. That's where we learned the statistics. So we did things to improve upon and work towards our outcome of success. That's what we did. But if you don't know who you are and you are still trying to figure out who you are, then keep figuring that out before you try to attract another person. Because if you are not whole and you're working on yourself, and then all of a sudden there's another person in your life and you're still not whole, then you'll stop working on yourself because now you want to attend to this person's needs. And the same problem will happen. Again, you will neglect who you are and you will not be satisfied in the relationship. So, what is the answer to that? The answer is you be whole. You do the things that you love, do meditation, do yoga, do whatever it takes to have you connect to a spirit, mind, and body, whether it's going to church, joining a youth group, joining a single group, joining a divorce group, a widowed group, whatever it is that your church offers, join it, mourn it, go in. And both Robert and I at different times, we didn't know each other when we went through this. I went through New Beginnings and he did too. He divorced 2 years prior or 3 years prior to my divorce. So I was divorced for 3 years. He was divorced for 5 years. So we did not meet each other there. And that was something that was started to happen when the New Beginnings, they couldn't even, when they introduced themselves, they were like, oh, yeah, my husband left me or my wife left me, and cry, cry, cry. And then there'd be a guy there or a woman there, and all of a sudden they'd hook up and they'd stop coming. They would stop coming to this 21-week course. First it was a 6 week, and then it was a 20, 19, 18 week after that. I can't remember how long it was, but it was a wonderful course where I got to see who I am. Why did my first marriage end? And you know what? Newsflash, it isn't always the other person's fault. I remember week after week learning, in part two of New Beginnings, I remember wanting to look at, my ex-husband, the jerk. And what I learned was, nobody taught me this. This is what came to me, was that week after week, and maybe that's the purpose of the group, week after week, I learned about Lily, the jerk, because it takes two, but if the other person is no longer there, why should I try to figure him out? I needed to figure myself out. That's when I talk about wholeness. I'm talking about that you're okay. If I never married again, that was my goal. If I never married again, I'd be okay with it. But guess what? Part of my journey was that I had become very cynical. I would sing at weddings and I go, right, I wonder how long this one's going to last. And give me my money, please. And then off I'd go until I met the one, until I met Robert. And once that happened, everything changed. Not my priorities, not my values, but that I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this is the person God had for me all along, and how beautiful that God would bless me. I used to say that if God wanted me to have more than two kids, he'd give me more than two arms. And as we met, the children didn't need to hold my hand. So it was fine. They were young enough where they still needed us, but old enough where I didn't have to hold their hand across the street. Only Blake, really. Blake, our youngest one. And it was so beautiful when I look back now at all the blessings, all the hardship, everything that we learned were beautiful gifts and ugly wrapping paper at times. There were times where I'd say, God, how can I love this person? And God would reply to me, the same way I love you. We're all flawed. We're all imperfect. And if there's room to grow, take it. Take it with the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. But if you find yourself saying, oh, that person, their nose is too big, or their feet are too small, or they're too short, they're too tall. And those might be part of the things that you have your 25 list of things that you don't want in a relationship. But if you find yourself being so critical, you need to figure out, why am I attracting people I don't like? Why am I attracting people I don't want to be with? Could it be that you don't feel worthy to be loved? That's where the wholeness comes in. That's where the work comes in. That's where we let ourselves go. We don't go to the gym. We eat whatever we want. We drink whatever we want without the thought of consequence. And even after you get married, I want to encourage you to continue to work on your appearance, because you want the person that you are with to always be excited to be with you, to want to be with you. And this is not meant to be a shaming or anything to that effect. It's just a matter of, don't stop trying to date the other person. To continue being who you held value. Was it working out, eating well, staying active, enjoying life, laughter, dancing, whatever it is, continue to include that in the maturation of your intimacy with your spouse, with that significant person that you want to be with. Don't just jokingly, a friend of ours said, I didn't shave all week long. They went on vacation. I didn't shave all week long. Who am I going to get? Who do I need to get dressed up for? And his wife said, excuse me, what about me? So we need to continue to date the person, even years after. So learning how to love yourself, learning to accept who you are, promotes a wholeness within you, but that may take for you to visit uncomfortable places that will make you deal with your fears, embrace forgiveness, learn from those, what are the true messages that are coming from the lack of love that I'm feeling in my life right now? Is it, I don't deserve it? Which is not true. We all deserve to love and be loved. Every time I start the classroom, I always say it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge. It is true. We want to give and receive. But today we're talking about the love, not just necessarily the knowledge. Well, I guess the knowledge is in there too, because we're learning how to become whole. In order for us to attract what we want, we must become what we want to attract, especially if it's sincere. The first time when I discovered that this person that I had been dating for 6 months, actually, I think I'd been dating them longer than that. Maybe it was 6 months. I found out that they didn't believe in God. They didn't believe in God. And I didn't know anybody who didn't believe in God. That's how sheltered my life was. And I broke up with him. I broke up with him. And I could say that I regret taking him back, but I don't. I don't, because that was the journey that I had to go through. And by the way, produced two beautiful kids who have now been part of the combination of the McDermott family. And so even if we make the wrong turn, and I'm saying I didn't the first time I sought counsel, and they said, well, there are people who say they believe in God that don't aren't as nice as he was. He's a nice guy. He was just very neglectful, who didn't love me the way I deserve to be loved. And it wasn't that he was doing it on purpose. He just didn't know any better, and I didn't either. I didn't either. And I hope that with his new wife, or when he remarried, that he is totally happy with her, and that they were better matched than he and I were. But that person would end up walking away from his children. But God had a different plan. So you see, I can go back and say, I wouldn't change anything from my past. But now, how do you want your future to be? How do you want this part of your life that you may be afraid of to kind of come back to you? If you need more help, you can reach out to me at whenyounneedafriend.com, schedule a coaching lesson. Maybe we can help you break through some of your fears, some of your shame that you're unwilling to look at because maybe you don't know how to get out of it. I'm more than happy to help. Go to whenyounneedafriend.com. And check while you're there, please subscribe, like, and follow me on all social media. Subscribing to the website is a two-step process. So once you subscribe, you will get an email. Please opt into that email, because if you don't opt in, you won't receive anything, any of the emails that I send out or any of the classes that we do. So make sure you do that. Like I said, like and follow me on all social medias. Share this video with your friend, or maybe somebody that you want to get to know a little better. Maybe you're not interested in a soulmate, but you just want a good girlfriend to hang around with, or a guy friend to hang around with, pal around, go watch the games or whatever. And I'm not talking about I'm talking about a friendship, a true, real friendship. I'm not talking about anything other than that. So just make sure that you share this, and so that you can start the dialogue with this person, that person that maybe you would like to move forward and have a closer relationship, a more intimate relationship with them. It's up to you and how you want to use this video, but share it and have conversations. And while you're there, check out my Shop Now bag, that has Lily approved products that from head to toe that will help keep you healthy, wealthy, and wise. And especially check out the Wave Watch, and also the Vision Body suit, which I am so in love with that suit. My body is changing as a result of this suit, and even at the age of 62, almost 63, I'm very happy about what the changes that I'm seeing with the Vision Body. Anyway, go check it out. And that's a way that you can help the classroom grow. Another way that you can help the classroom grow is you become an enrolled student in the classroom, whether it's $1, $1,000 a month, a one-time donation, a recurring donation, whatever the case might be. Please consider donating to the classroom. Sacrifice that cafe latte, sacrifice that luncheon, and just bring your own lunch and donate it to the classroom to help us grow. At this point, we've chosen not to have sponsors. And as a result, we are relying totally on the generosity of you and all our listeners and viewers. So if you can donate, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, all of it is welcome. So today we are talking about the call to love and be loved. What does Jesus say? Love the Lord with all your might, soul, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. What if that neighbor of yours becomes a really good friend? and they hurt you. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm done. I'm not going to have any friends. What are you keeping yourself from? Deal with the hurt from that other friend and don't feel that everybody's going to do that. And as I've said in the past, that even if you love the wrong person or love someone who doesn't deserve to be loved, at least you loved. Now, here's the shift. It's your turn to be loved too. And so that's what this is about. And it's about choosing what you want to surround yourself with. It doesn't just happen. Yeah, let me rephrase that. It could just happen, but it doesn't just happen once. You must work at it with the other person because if you don't, then it just ends. It just ends. You fall, you don't you focus on what you don't have in common versus what you have in common. So if you're finding yourself, and especially in today's climate, where you feel that maybe a friend is putting pressure on you with your belief system and they can't handle a difference of belief, then that's on them. You can discuss it with them. And there have been people in the classroom that have said, you do you, I do me. Back then when we used to dance beforehand, there were some people that just didn't want to dance. David Icke, I remember he said to me, Lily, you do you, I do me. And he just sat there stoic as can be. But we don't do the dancing anymore. I'm hoping that you still, when you hear the music, start to dance because dancing is so good, so therapeutic. And just when you dance like nobody's watching, that is the kind of love that I love to put out there. Dance like nobody's watching, love like nobody's watching, love like everything matters. Everything matters. And whether it's a mate, and today I really wanted to focus more on the mate aspect of it because that was the question. How do I, at a ripe old age of 50, how do I find love again? Well, you gotta love yourself. You gotta love yourself. Choosing love when it feels uncomfortable. You can choose love when it feels uncomfortable and discuss it with the other person so that now that uncomfortableness is now part of your comfort zone. You see how it works? You might think it doesn't feel good to go to a club or that they all like to hike or whatever. Do whatever it takes. But if your excuse is, I'm tired, who will I know? Who do I meet? There's no one in this area that I want to meet. Whatever it is that your excuse is, it's keeping you from meeting that person because that encounter could lead to a different encounter with somebody else, inviting you to come to this group, and this person invites you to go to this group. And next thing you know, you're expanding your love circle. You're getting to know more people. And I went to an event that I was invited to just recently. And as I walked up the stairs, I'm, you know, I'm, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a really shy person. And before I walk into a room, I have to really psych myself up because I'm so shy. I was like, okay, who's going to talk to me? You go through all this stuff that is childhood, the little kid inside your brain. But as I was going up the stairs, because I know enough to do it anyway, right? Do it anyway. So as I'm going up the stairs, the person that was walking in front of the stairs as I was walking out, our eyes locked onto each other. And I thought, do I know this person? Then I just thought, she seems familiar to me. Then um, maybe 20 minutes later, she comes to me and she said, did you sing at St. Peter and Paul? And I went, yes. St. Peter and Paul's in Winter Park. And I was in Brevard County. And so was she. And she said, oh my gosh, we used to love it when you used to sing there. And we used to love it. And then I thought, you know what? I remember your face. Of course, it was 20 years ago, but we just hugged each other and we thought, What an incredible opportunity that God would put us together. Let's discover why. And so we got together, enjoyed each other's company. We're getting together again with our spouses. And, had I not risked and gone up those stairs, this person wouldn't have been in front of me. And this new friendship at 62, 63 would have never blossomed. If I would have said, you know what, I really don't want to go. I don't want to meet anybody. What if I don't meet anybody I like? And I start talking myself out, you know who you are. You know that we are capable of talking ourselves out of having fun, of just going out and having fun. Had I not done that, I would have never seen her again. And we wouldn't have been able to meet and have a good lunch again afterwards. She ended up having lunch, this event. She ended up sitting at our table because we had an extra seat available. And so, wow, and it was like two friends coming together who had never met each other, but because we shared that in common, it was just magical. So that's what I'm saying with you. The moment you start talking yourself out of going to a place, you're talking yourself into that desire that you have of being loved, being seen, being acknowledged. And it works a little bit and a little bit at a time until you achieve that love that you so desire, that you so deserve. Does that make sense to you? Let me know in the comments below if you've ever experienced this kind of magic, or have you played it safe? Have you played it small? Have you decided, I'm not going to do this because, who am I going to meet? I'm not going to have anything in common with anybody. Well, if that's what you think, then that's what you will get. Because when I go to anything, whether I know the people that are going to be there or not, I know God's going to put someone in my life that I'm just going to enjoy the entire evening or part of the evening or a section of the evening or the day with that person. I know that someone's going to present themselves in front of me that I am just going to love on. And I'll feel that connection as well. So I'm hoping that at this point in your life, that if you don't feel whole, that becomes a priority. Before meeting that soulmate, that it becomes a priority. And I used to, now I say less, but I used to say, give yourself a whole year of falling in love with yourself. Because in order for you to fall in love with someone else, you must love yourself first. Not in a narcissistic way, not in an arrogant or egoic way, but in a honoring way, in an honoring way. So unless you love yourself, how can you expect someone to love you? So it's very important. And so that you work that, get a book, make an appointment to schedule an appointment to be with me, or somebody else, but start the process of loving yourself, of falling in love with who you are, good, bad, and ugly, whatever it is, and work on those things that you don't like about yourself, because you don't want to bring that into a relationship, do you? You don't. I wouldn't want it. I don't want it. I mean, even today, both Robert and I work hard to continue to be love for each other, to be love for each other and feel love by each other. So love is a daily practice, not a destination. It's not like, I breathe once and I no longer have to breathe. Breathing is something I recommend very highly. So if you were to have that attitude that, oh, all I have to do is breathe once and I'm done, or go to school this one time, I'm just going to learn this one thing and I'm done, or, I used to watch my weight and I used to work out, but I'm with somebody, I'm done, or, I got married, so I'm done. No, it's a destination. It's a destination, and that will lead you down your yellow brick road, and hopefully the person that you're with will go in that journey with you, and sometimes they might get off the path and you will follow them there, or maybe you'll wait for them to return, depending on the situation. Maybe they had to go out of the country. Maybe they were called to serve the country. Whatever it is, you may stay and wait, or you may choose not to wait. It's either way, it's a choice. But there's different things that you can do to kind of encourage loving yourself and loving others, being intentional with your choices and saying, you know what? And I remember saying this to Robert, I don't just want to be married. I want to be happily married. I don't want to just, you know, get into a relationship and then forget that we used to once date. I want to remember what made us fall in love, what made us crazy about each other. I want to go down that memory lane so that when we're together, we still have those feelings of just being madly in love with one another. Don't you? Don't you want that? Tell me what you want. What are the attributes that you want in your partner? And be that. Be that because it's genuine. Don't attract something that's the opposite of you unless there's more in common and that you're willing to put up with or get to know what they're different than you. If it's political, I've seen couples that have different perspectives, but that's a conversation they can't have. But if they respect each other's differences, that's one thing. If they cannot respect each other, it's time to move on, especially if you're not married with that person. So the core values, your core values, those things, those 5 things that you circle, like, do you want them to be a Christian? Do you want them to be, a good provider? Do you want them to be, have hobbies, this particular hobby that you love? There's certain things that you want that they may not have, but are they willing to learn? Are you willing to learn? And are you willing to enjoy it? Because then after a while you go, oh, I don't like that. I don't want to be a part of that. And, it's not about the doing the things that you love to do when you're in love. It's doing all the things with each other and opening yourself up to lose that love. You just open yourself up because if you lose that love, then it wasn't meant to be, but at least you get an experience from that love. There's a blessing from it. Because I had not gone out with the guy that had the daughter that lived out of state, I would have never been open to dating Robert, who had 3 that lived at home with him, not with his ex-wife. So those are things that take that next step for you, whatever that is, whether it's start a club, start a group, join a group, whatever it is, to start your journey, to open yourself up, to bring more people into your life and create the life and the love that you want. And please remember, I'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. I hope you said that with me.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.